Even though I've been gaming since I was a young child, there's still one genre of game I find very intimidating and difficult to get into. No, it's not any of the genres I'm bad at. Since I already know that I can't aim or drive worth a hoot, it's pretty easy to avoid shooters and racing games. MMO experiences seem like a confusing field, but I genuinely prefer single-player games, so there's no issue there. Heck, there are plenty of genres that seem to be hard to get into that I find pretty easy and even comfortable to navigate, like the enormously varied genre of puzzle games and even 4X-style grand strategies. Surprisingly, it's actually visual novels. For those not in the know, visual novels are exactly what they sound like. Novels with some visual aspects. So how could a story with some pictures be hard to get into? Well, I think it's for all the same reasons that I find picking out a book and just reading it difficult in this stage of my life. I used to be an avid reader. I was the kid that wanted to skip recess to get a few chapters in, but I haven't really read a book for enjoyment since high school. Why? Well, I can go into a bookstore and browse for hours, read all sorts of reviews online, and check the summaries of so many books, but I have no guarantee that I'm going to like them. There's no certainty that I'll connect with any of the characters or situations within the story, no assurance that I'll like how the climax resolves or the ending goes, and no promise that I won't find something within all those pages that just doesn't sit right with me. Plus, games are a lot easier to interact with since they engage my senses of touch and hearing as well as sight. All of these problems translate right into the variety of visual novels on the market. How am I supposed to search for the exact visual novel that would be right for me? Well, what kind of story do you want? I don't know, maybe one with believable characters and complex situations, but there's no tag for that. I can click on story rich and choices matter all I want, but does that actually guarantee that I'll like it? Heck, I'm not even sure how to navigate the sexual content and nudity tags, because if I include them, I'm going to end up with mostly anime dating sims with plenty of dubious consent and underage girls, and if I exclude them, I'm either left with murder mysteries and detective stories, which isn't necessarily what I want, or with clanad, which just seems boring to me. I'd also like some gameplay in there, but it's hard to figure out which games are visual novels with a touch of RPG gameplay and which are RPGs with a touch of visual novel story. The process of searching for and actually finding a visual novel that you would enjoy seems so difficult to me, so I end up relying mostly on playing things I've seen or heard about before through YouTube videos or word of mouth. Because of all this, I think when you find a visual novel that knocks it out of the park in all aspects, complex characters who act in believable ways, choices that matter and are often especially difficult, sensitive content that doesn't overwhelm or warp the story, plus multiple endings, gorgeous graphics, and just a touch of unexpected gameplay that keeps you on your toes, it absolutely needs to be shared. So, if you're a gamer struggling to find an interesting visual novel, a visual novel fiend who can't get enough of the genre, or even someone who typically steers clear of gaming, you should play Yangyang Mobile's The Letter. The Letter is a horror visual novel game developed and published by Yangyang Mobile and released on Steam on July 24, 2017. As the story begins, you find yourself taking the role of Isabela Santos, a 26-year-old Filipina real estate agent working in Luxbourne City in the UK. Isabela is currently working on the sale of the Ermengarde Mansion, a local mansion known in the area for its urban legends of ghosts and hauntings. And while Isabela is looking in the mansion for her partner, who is supposed to be helping her set up the open house, she finds a dreadful letter with the words "Help me" written all over it, followed by "Send this to 5 people or else." She also gets chased by ghosts and gets knocked out, don't worry about it. A bit later, during the open house, Isabela accidentally hands the letter to 3 of the 7 main characters, a rich couple and their interior designer, and later a friend snatches the letter from her, allowing all of her 3 friends and the rest of the main characters to see the letter. Bada bing, bada boom, everybody's cursed. It's up to you as the player to guide everyone through this regrettable situation and get to the bottom of this curse. Or you can lead everyone to their death and never figure out the true nature of the letter. It's your choice. The Steam Star page for this game states it has over 700,000 words, which would put it over the amount of words in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but under the word count of the main Harry Potter series, according to this blog. Whatever way you want to look at it, that's a lot of words and a lot of reading. The best part about this is that it takes you through a lot of situations. While it seems like a horror visual novel would typically focus on the scary stuff, the letter offers a lot of downtime where characters get to know each other and build their relationships, learn about the world around them, and debate certain choices in their paths. The worst part about this is it is a lot of reading, plenty of which is not narrated, and it can get pretty wordy. A common complaint of this game is that some of the inner monologues of characters could be cut down, and while I agree to a certain extent, I also think all of this writing is super immersive and puts you right into the characters' shoes, making it much more difficult to make the right decisions for them. Speaking of the main characters, all 7 of them really are the stars of the show. The story is divided into 7 chapters, each told from the perspective of one person, and it isn't told chronologically. So even though Isabella's story finishes a few days in, Hannah's starts before Isabella's does, and each character still gets to interact in situations that were not portrayed in the character's chapter, as seen when Zach's chapter starts right where Isabella's ends. Seriously though, you wouldn't expect the characters in a game about a spooky chain letter to be this fleshed out and complex, to the point where the whole cursed part could be taken out and the story of these 7 different characters interacting with each other could still be entertaining. A big part of the story being so interesting is that the characters are also different from each other. As opposed to the typical visual novel cliche of all characters being from the same Japanese high school, you have a bunch of adults from totally different places and backgrounds that just happen to be near each other when this whole thing starts. Isabella is a real estate agent from the Philippines who has just been working in the UK to get enough money to help her sick father, and she happened to make friends with Rebecca, a local high school teacher with a mean temper and mom streak, Ashton, an Asian American who has lived in Luxbourne through his parents' divorce and now works as a detective inspector, and Zachary, an African American photographer who moved to the area after his parents were killed. Luke and Hannah Wright are totally different in that Hannah grew up in high society while Luke grew up in total poverty, and just ascended the throne, so to speak, when his father needed an heir to handle his fancy tech company. Even Marianne, the interior designer, is complex in that she has a totally tragic and wild past and only moved to the city due to a jobs crisis in Ireland. With all these characters that have incredibly different backgrounds, a lot of conflict arises when it comes to solving problems and dealing with situations, let alone running from a ghost. And the situations that the characters deal with aren't just small or petty ones. One character has to send all the money from her lucrative job back home to support her large family and sick father, all while lamenting over never being able to finish her degree. Another character struggles with the disparity between her sexuality and her religion, as well as the death of a childhood friend and whether or not that death was her fault. Ashton fights against the political and bureaucratic nature of the Luxbourne Police Department and how it gets in the way of justice, and Zachary deals with his everyday trauma that resulted from his parents being murdered in a hate crime and the racism he endured after moving to Luxbourne. Heck, even the rich couple have issues, as both of them feel as though something is wrong with their marriage and neither is sure how to fix it. The Wrights also display their class disparity by being incredibly out of touch, where in some situations they are progressive and downright kind to others, and in other situations they're just plain racist. Each and every character deals with some heavy social problem, and the writers don't shy away from those problems at all. Another problem that the writers don't shy away from, of course, is the whole curse letter ghost thing. I particularly like how each character, being from different religious backgrounds, reacts to the ghost differently, and the ghost also reacts differently to each person. Isabella is very superstitious, so she immediately assumes what she has seen is a ghost, whereas Rebecca and Ashton are very scientifically minded and easily find other ways to explain what they have seen. Even Marianne reacts differently, and, due to her religious background, assumes the ghost is actually her sins haunting her. The ghost also appears in different ways to different characters, often in ways where they can explain away its existence, leaving Isabella alone, for the most part, in her journey to get to the bottom of the curse. I also appreciate that many of the background characters are complex and not one-dimensional. The Wright's butler, the little girl, the professor, and Isabella's mentor are all multifaceted and feel very real in how they react to certain situations. My favorite of this group is the butler, Johannes, who really evolves in different playthroughs and becomes way more complex than you would expect. Of course, the characters and story become more complex and change through your choices, which is where the story meets gameplay. There are also a large amount of choices to make in this game, and while some are easy or don't really change much, most of them can alter the course of each character's life. Some choices decide what a character does, whether they speak up or quiet down, act calm or freak out, or even whether they decide to do something dangerous or be safe. Some options also have the bonus of showing the player different scares, making future playthroughs a bit more spooky. Choices can also affect relationships with other characters, which may change which choices you can even access in the future. If you've done enough things to piss another character off, they may not want to help you when you're stuck in a sticky situation. But if you've done enough things to make another character really like you, they may protect you in the future. There can also be choices that decide what you do and who you make happy. If Isabella leaves without seeing Zach's movie, Zach's relationship with her goes down and she doesn't get to see the movie. But if she stays, her relationship with Becca goes down and she'll be able to talk with her friends about the letter, leading to an option of meeting the professor or trying to get the house blessed. With such human characters, the real surprise of this game is that some choices can decide what other characters do since you only control one character at once. If you yell at Isabella as Rebecca, you have no way of controlling how she reacts or what she does afterward. Heck, there's an early game choice that doesn't really seem like it would affect much in the grand scheme of things, but because of how a certain character tries to mitigate the situation, the entire story can change and put several characters on a different path. One of the best parts of the letter is that the choices actually matter in the long run. There are plenty of games out there that let you make all kinds of choices but only have one or two endings, but the letter has a lot. There are the true endings, good and bad endings for each character, romance endings, and good and bad friendship endings. So not only are the endings different in the sense that a character can live or die, but they can also have a negative or positive relationship with others, leading to a detriment or improvement of their friendship in the future. Characters who make bad choices get bad endings, and building up certain relationships enough can lead to romantic relationships for those characters in the future. This gives the game a lot of replayability, and you can choose whether to go in a playthrough with a specific goal or to just let the choices decide the story. Personally, my first playthrough was to get the true ending, and my second was to immediately get my favorite characters together. But you can also just jump in and see what happens. Make all the worst choices and get all the characters to hate each other. Kill off every character and see what happens to those that are left. Kick Luke right in the crotch. Who cares? It's your game. With all these different endings and story choices, the letter gives you a lot of different ways to track everything. You can see all the background images, computer graphic scenes, and item sprites that you found in your playthroughs, which is great for completion purposes, but is also great for admiring the great artwork, especially the food. These are also sectioned by chapter for ease of finding exactly which nice scene or spook you want to capture footage or take a screenshot of. And the CG section has this miscellaneous tab that I still don't know how to access several playthroughs in. The game also has a lot of achievements that are pretty fun to get, usually relating to making certain choices, killing characters, or getting specific endings. The best completion tracking aspect of the letter is the branching trees for each chapter, which show which decisions you've made in previous playthroughs and which choices you've never seen. The red line shows the exact path you've taken for your current playthrough, so you can see where your story has changed, and while some choices are shown, others are just displayed as a story update, so you don't always know what you've done previously that determines changes as you play. The letter also has some standard visual novel gameplay, such as an autoplay function, so you don't have to click after every dialogue, a skip option for skipping over anything you've played before except choices, a backlog of text that you can read if you've missed something that a character has said, the ability to save and load in multiple slots, which is useful if you want to see the results from all different choices, and the ability to remove the text just in case you want to look at the characters for a bit. All of this is super useful for keeping track of multiple different playthroughs and trying to get all those achievements. The letter also features a bit of QTE gameplay to keep you on your toes throughout the story. QTE stands for QuickTime Event, which essentially means you'll have to quickly press some keys on your keyboard or move your mouse in a certain way to successfully complete the event. The QTEs only pop up in situations with the ghost, which helps to add to the scares, but you don't have to worry too much, as failing only leads to a temporary death, meaning that your character won't die in the story and you can try the QTE again. And you can also skip any of these events. This is great for when you're skipping through something you've already played before, or anytime you get to this elevator event because you can't use your number pad and oh my gosh, it's so hard. A good number of visual novels just stick to the story and don't add this kind of sudden gameplay. So I see this as another way the letter stands out in the genre, and another reason a gamer who typically doesn't enjoy this genre might like this game. As another departure from the norm of visual novels, the letter features a full voice cast with fantastic voice actors.
I'm impressed, Ashton Frey. You even made it to the news.
A one-time thing, and it wasn't as big as you seem to be imagining.
Live with my older sister and my grandparents. We had a shop selling all sorts of things below our flat.
I'm not afraid of you, you spook! This is one Scotswoman. You aren't getting into an early grave without a fight!
I'm working on the Ermengarde mansion. Lucky me. That mansion. Intach. Wonderful. Breathtaking. I can't wait to start in it.
Oh, please, sweetie, don't insult me. Money is not a problem.
Love that intensity, Daisy. FYI, I like feisty in a woman. It gives them this certain charm.
Although accent experts may not like a few of the character portrayals, this really helps you play through the game and enjoy the story without getting too tired of reading all the internal dialogue and every character talking to each other. The sound quality of the recordings is fantastic, apart from a few re-recordings, and hearing each character speak in their natural accents is pretty fun and interesting. The game also has a nice soundtrack, and a lot of the music is pretty relaxing to listen to, as you've probably been hearing in the background. I don't think any of the tracks really got stuck in my head. I more felt that the type of music in this game would be great to study with. The horror sounds are, of course, something you'd never want to hear while studying. There's a good amount of horror fans who feel like sound design is a key aspect to the horror formula, and I am glad to say that the letter delivers in this front. The ghost's whispers are unsettling.
Huh?
The QTE music is aggressive and makes your every movement feel final. The screaming and wailing is really unpleasant. And there are even a few great sounds that only pop up for specific characters, such as the ghost humming a song that one of Rebecca's students sings. Or in this specific failed QTE with Isabella. The sound may be incredible, but that doesn't mean the aesthetic is anything to sneeze at. The ghost design in this game is very gore-heavy, which isn't surprising considering the game's inspirations are the Grudge and the Ring. She's also either screaming or smiling, which makes her hard to look at in both long and short periods. I went on a bit of a search because I wanted to include some information about why the ghost's irises are so small and why that freaks me out so much. And I stumbled upon a video titled Elements of Horror: How Eyes Are Used in Horror Movies from the channel Screened. In it, they describe how characters with an above-average amount of white space around their eye can be shown to incite fear in audiences. Quote, "In this case, the eyes are a steady flow of anger, hatred, and resentment, uninterrupted by tears or our inborn need to blink. It's abnormal and unwavering, just like the character's need for vengeance." I found this to be a fantastic description of why I find the ghost's eyes so frightening in this game. The video is a great watch, so I'll link it in a card above. Now you might be thinking that this ghost isn't actually that scary, and to be fair, anyone gets desensitized to something spooky if they see it over and over again, say for an entire game. The letter employs a strategy that I like to call the DDLC approach to horror. Basically, this is where a longer horror game spreads its scares out so that after one scare has happened, enough non-scary things happen that you start to relax, and when another scare pops up, you can be scared by it again. Otherwise, multiple scares in a row can lead to more anger and frustration, and can even give you a headache from all the jumping or flinching. The letter also does a great job of making the scares vary from chapter to chapter. In Chapter 1, well, Isabella is afraid of ghosts, so the ghost pops up quite often. Whereas in Hannah's chapter, the scares are pretty few and far between. In Zach's chapter, the ghost uses a song from Zach's childhood as a method to scare him, and it also uses someone Marianne used to know to scare her. This way, the scares don't get stale and remain, well, scary. Of course, the scares are amped up a lot if you end up killing off some of the characters. The death scenes are pretty spooky, and the deaths themselves are gruesome, especially if another character finds a corpse later on. This creates an interesting game within the game. Don't want to get scared that much? Try to keep everyone alive. Good luck! The horror aesthetic isn't the only visually impressive part of this game, however. The letter features some beautifully moving CG scenes that bring life to the characters and help you connect with them. While these are easily the most beautiful part of the game, my absolute favorite visual aspect of the letter is the animated sprites of all the characters. Most visual novels just have static images of each character that occasionally swap out for different poses, but the sprites in the letter move. They blink, look at you, turn to each other, twirl their hair, clench their fists, and even breathe. Seeing these characters move in front of you and look alive makes you want to protect them even more. In the complicated realm of visual novels, the letter has a lot to offer. Fantastic animated visuals, a full and diverse voice cast, a socially inclusive story that twists and turns by your design, and the addition of QTEs and spooks make the letter stand out from the pack of anime dating sims and murder mysteries. Whether you're a VN veteran, a gamer new to the genre, or not a gamer at all, anyone can find something they enjoy in the letter.
I thought you already left, Buttercup.
Well, I most certainly have not left yet. I wouldn't be standing here if I did, would I?
Of course you wouldn't be, darling. But don't you need to be somewhere else today? Something with Marianne? Shopping, girl, things?
Oh, I'll be leaving in a few. Unless you want to join us.
No thanks, darling. I'm afraid my liver, it's killing me today. Ooh!